Hello, it's Daz, and I want to talk about something critical, and that is a potential for an energy shortage. As conflicts rise in the Middle East, and the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and the US dollar continues to take a tumble due to the death of the petrodollar and more countries switching to align themselves with the yuan. For example, Japan met with the president not too long ago, and he made a crude joke about when they asked, why didn't you tell us about the attack in Iran before you did it? Trump then said, why didn't you tell us about Pearl Harbor, which is almost 100 years ago? But they went ahead and decided they were going to switch over to the yuan currency, which allowed Japan now to have their ships pass. Many countries are going to 4-day work weeks, and they're even talking about having it so you can only drive on certain days of the week in certain countries. And this is something I saw in Mexico City whenever I would go visit my relatives down there. And that is honestly an invasive way to live, but if there's a shortage, allegedly, of fuel, that means that could halt travel. We saw during this shutdown, I believe they just approved funding, so TSA agents will finally get paid, which they deserve to get paid for the job they're doing. Nobody should work for free. We see that travel is being interrupted, but if there's a shortage of energy, that means, like, for instance, in New York, they're talking about shutting off streetlights by 10 p.m., but yet we have data centers being built in the US on this old infrastructure that's going to require more energy. So I do believe there may be another lockdown like they had in 2020, but for energy. And some jobs cannot be done remotely. Like, I have a remote work from home job, but like my husband, for instance, his job could never be done remotely. So it does make me wonder what they'll do about people who have to go to work if they're monitoring how much they can drive. And that means a shortage of food, that means a shortage of medical supplies, that means hospitals could suffer. In Cuba, where energy is being cut off, there was a hospital that lost power, and those who were on life support or receiving essential care that required energy died. Just disturbing. Also, in Israel, they're not showing us everything that's happening, but in Tel Aviv, there was a swarm of, I believe it was crows, which means there's probably more dead bodies than they're letting on. But it looked like the plagues of Egypt. Like, I watched Prince of Egypt not too long ago, and it made me think of scenes from that movie. Also, Ghana brought before the UN that slavery should be recognized, the transatlantic slave trade, as a crime against humanity, and the United States, Israel, and Argentina, the usual suspects, voted no, and 23 countries abstained because they said that at the time it wasn't illegal, which to me is just shows how nothing's really changed from the past to now. But can we be surprised by countries that are supporting a genocide currently and are continuing to grab land and try to colonize the world? Because Israel is trying to grab land in Kenya, and now they're trying to get land in Argentina. And Argentina's president is working with Israel on that because they had a law against you can't take land, but if it's burnt, then it can be taken. And ironically, land is being burned, and you see more Israeli tourists flocking to that Patagonia area, which is a beautiful part of the land. And then in Kenya, they're also trying to grab land because they realize that the so-called land of Israel may not be anymore. So we're living in a time where resources are becoming scarce. Last week we talked about a water shortage. This week I'm talking about an energy shortage. And it's hard because what I would say is to stock up on what you have, canned items, even on little luxuries that you like. Like, for instance, I like coffee. I'm starting to learn to make my coffee from home, have my own ice. If I like iced coffee, get my own coffee, saving $20 here or there. It may cost money to get like your initial creamer or coffee beans, or like if you're like me and you like Dutch Bros or sweet drinks, getting your syrups. But once you have them, you can save trips where you're spending $7, $14, depending on how many people you're buying for. And also, if you have the ability to grow your own food, grow your own food. I would say if you have the ability to stock up on water, like bottles of water, do so, because things are going to get a lot more rockier. Like, I've been wanting to go on a trip this summer, and I don't know if it's going to even be possible. I was going to fly, and then I said I might drive, which we know the fuel prices are going to go up, but I don't even know if I'm going to be allowed to if things go into a lockdown. I don't want to live my life like that, but I feel like God is showing us every day that things are getting more and more intense. There's also now boots on the ground because they deployed soldiers to the Middle East. So they're saying we're winning the war, but why deploy soldiers if we're supposedly winning? So it's becoming more and more clear to me that there's a lot that we're not being told. There's a lot of censorship. And it's not to fearmonger, but like the U.S. was declared, like the Treasury was declared insolvent, meaning we're bankrupt. So I don't understand like why I'm expected to pay my bills and continue working, but our country's bankrupt. But that's besides the point. It's clear that there may be some rocky roads ahead. However, I, as a Christian, believe in trusting God, and He'll take care of His remnant. He'll take care of His people. However, we need to be alert and discerning. And let me know what your thoughts are on the energy crisis. If you think there's going to be another lockdown, what you think about what's happening with the world at large in this war and AI. And one other note, Melania Trump came out with a robot, and this was for education. So some were saying this is insinuating like robots are replacing teachers. And I heard that the Department of Education moved K through 12 education under the Department of Labor, which is suspicious because I hear there are laws that they want to change to allow kids to work as young as 14. In some states, they want to lower the age of consent. Like, just disturbing stuff when you think about the whole Epstein stuff and just like exploiting youth for work. They raised, though, however, the age to join the military, which means the draft age will be raised to 42, because they know that, again, a lot of people in our generations, like Gen Z and millennials, are out of shape, smoke a lot. So they gotta try to get people. Some of the strongest people may be a little bit older than your 18 to 26 demographic they would usually go for. So again, like to know your thoughts. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care. God bless. Until next time.